party, we like to party, party, party all night long. Party, party, we like to party, 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 never go home. Party, party, we like to party, party, party all night long. Party, party, we like to party, 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 never go home.
What's up, everyone, and welcome back to, I believe, episode 23 of the Ball Talk Pod.
Have you already forgotten?
I mean, we're so many podcasts in, it's hard to keep them all separated. No, it's 23. And if it's not, oh well.
It's our Jordan podcast.
It's the Jordan podcast. It's going to be the best to date. Got an action-packed episode ready for you guys tonight. We're going to kick it off with our go-to segment, the news of the week. Chris, what do you got for me, man?
My news has to do with the NCAA tournament. So March Madness is right around the corner. It starts Thursday. Am I right, Ben?
Tuesday, if you count the first four.
I don't. So it starts. It starts on Thursday. So make sure to fill out your brackets. But I guess the team I'm talking about right now is playing tomorrow. UNC with a record of. Hold on, I have it written down with the record of 13-7 in conference and 22-13 overall, has made the NCAA tournament. University of North Carolina as the final team in, according to the selection committee. Pretty impressive when you had a lot of people picking West Virginia to go into the brackets. But it's not so mysterious when you look at who's on the selection committee.
Who is it, Chris?
The selection committee chair, the head of the selection committee, is the University of North Carolina's athletic director. So no chance they didn't get in this year, Ben. I mean, just a ridiculous amount of bureaucracy to get them into the tournament. And I'm sure they're going to lose to San Diego State tomorrow, like you said, and not even officially make the tournament in my eyes.
You know, it's a tough look. It really is. And someone brought up a point on Twitter, like some random account said, they should just make it so that 12 guys who just geek out over basketball. No one that's tied to a university, one that just some homies.
Like John Rothstein should be the chair of the committee every year.
Yeah, just guys that watch.
He watches more
game.
College basketball than anyone in the world. He should be on the selection committee, and it should be, you're right, just people who live and breathe college basketball, not athletic directors who have an agenda.
No ties. There's got to be no ties.
It even got so bad in West Virginia. West Virginia is so upset. They are taking it to their government
court
to try to sue the NCAA, which it happens a few times, right? I think FSU did that when they didn't make the college football playoffs. I think they also brought
that's just a way to rally the troops. You know, they know nothing's going to come of it.
Well, it's also like a fail or a thinly veiled attempt by politicians to I have your back as
I'm fighting for our basketball team.
I'm fighting for our state.
Give me your vote.
Yeah, give me your vote. So just kind of all sorts of messed up stuff happening in the NCAA, as one would imagine. You know, they're definitely not the most pious organization. So,
you know, it's funny. You said they were taking it to the legal system, and OU has been the last team out, or at least once or twice in the last 4 years since Porter took over. And I don't remember anybody in Oklahoma being like, what?
Yeah, the Porter Moser experience has sort of gotten people just sort of complacent with their seed in the NIT tournament.
Until we turned it down last year. But they're back. Oklahoma Sooners get it as the 9th seed. That's not even my news of the day.
Yeah,
but we'll give a shout out. My news of the day, well, before we go to that, I will say stick around later into the pod because Chris and I are going to reveal our Elite Eight. And most of our listeners, we're in some kind of bracket challenge. So you better listen to the whole pod if you want a little bit of insight on what not to do.
Yeah, that's good luck.
But yeah, my news of the week, it really isn't necessarily anything that impacts a sports team or really anything. It's just a feel-good story out of Portland, Oregon, and the Portland Trailblazers organization. So this goes back to in 2003, there was a little girl that they brought out to sing the national anthem. And she got so nervous and so scared, she just couldn't do it. And a little Thunder tie here, Mo Cheeks, who's a former Thunder assistant and was a coach for Portland in 2003, came out and stood by her and helped her get through the national anthem.
Mm-hmm.
Now, fast forward to this year, they brought that girl back, and she sang the national anthem. She rocked it, and Mo Cheeks was in the crowd. And I think that's a feel-good story. I don't think it's anything crazy, but sports, when they do stuff like that, is it's one of the cool things about sports. It provides the platform for things like that to give us all the warm and bubbly feelings inside of us, instead of yelling and cussing at the ref like the Detroit Pistons coach did.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, we'll talk about that here in a few minutes, but it feels like, well, I'll just wait. I'll wait.
Yeah. But shout out to Portland. I think that's super cool. And glad that they could come full circle with that. But there is your news of the week. You got the NCAA March Madness brackets revealed, and you got Portland doing cool things. So with that, we're going to move on into Thunder basketball. Since we last talked to you, the Thunder had just come off of a win against the Boston Celtics on the road, and they played 2 games over the weekend. We had Detroit Saturday night and at Milwaukee in a back-to-back Sunday. Both of these games, Dub was still out. Now, I said this last pod, and it really goes true for any Thunder injury. Dub is day-to-day. It was a 3-game road trip, so the team never came back to Oklahoma City. So basically, I think if there was a home game in that, or if it was like mixed up in terms of not just a 3-game road trip, Dub would have played one of those games, is my uneducated opinion on it. But the Thunder come back home this week to the 76ers and the Hornets, so I do think we will see him back. But all that to say, we will not be given we were not given the opportunity to watch Dub play basketball in Detroit or Milwaukee. Now, the Thunder went into Detroit, pulled out a 113-107 victory behind 48-4-6 from your MVP, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Chris, how you feeling after that Pistons game? In the 24 hours before the next game, how are you feeling in those 24 hours?
What I really took away from the Pistons game was honestly like how happy the Pistons are and how they're fun to watch. Like Isaiah Stewart was a lot of fun. While he was playing was a lot of fun. So they are a young team that has like that scrappy mentality that it did get them in trouble, but that's what I really took away. I mean, Shai, obviously, 48 points. It's kind of a home night. Without 50, you kind of feel like he left something on the table.
Off night.
But the things that I'm starting to notice from Shai, not only scoring wise, he's starting to make skip passes and become a better passer, which is something that I know they worked on this summer. So it's nice to see some of that come to fruition. Skip passes to 3 balls. He threw an oop to Isaiah Hartenstein. So you feel like some of that passing is starting to really come through that he's been working so hard on. But I don't know. Is there something specific that you took away from Detroit?
Well, one, talking about what you said about Shai's skip passes. Shockingly enough, in the end of season press conference that Presti gave, coming off of a heartbreaking loss in Game 6 in Dallas in a series that, we talk about all the time, the Thunder and the Mavs scored the same amount of points, and we were a foul away from a Game 7 in Oklahoma City. Instead of talking about rebounding, which is a big deal, or depth at the center position because we really fell off when Chet was off the court, his number one point of emphasis was passing. He said in the playoffs, you win with passing. And it sounds like cliche. Everything Presti says feels like it's cliche because he always words it so well. But his point is you had a team like Dallas last year, and I'll give them their props here. But Luka what he was able to do with those skip passes and just all of his passing in general, setting up guys for shots and putting it where they need it to execute at a high level in the playoffs. That's what he's talking about. It's like, let's put our guys in position to be in position. And you could tell, I mean, there was even a pregame warm-up that Dub had a little bit before Christmas where he was like specifically out there practicing skip passes to the corner from the top of the key. So it's become a huge point of emphasis. I love that he's starting to implement it a little bit more because Shea has always said, I'm not going to do anything in the game that I haven't practiced to feel comfortable with in a game.
Well, I think he's like being made to feel more comfortable in the game because like skip passes come because they are doubling Shea, and so they flood the guys closest to him with the next available defender. So Shea being able to throw that ball to the weak side where there's no defender for an easy three is such a big like a big step in his playmaking ability. And he's, as we've seen throughout this year, people have like schemed to like double him all the time. So
for sure,
comfortable with that skip pass is important.
For sure. My other takeaway from this, and it has to do with Shea, or at least one of the other takeaways. He had, I mean, obviously it was Detroit, so it wasn't on national television or anything. I think it was a game that a casual NBA fan that likes League Pass would have tuned into because, like we said, Detroit's been a fun game or a fun team to watch this year. But he had one in the third quarter. He had the ball, shot clock was going down. He like pivoted 3 or 4 times and shot a 3 over the defender and cashed it. And it's like Shea doesn't even shoot that shot 2 years ago. And as soon as it left his hand, I was like, that's going, like, I just think it's going to go in now, especially like the tougher the shot. I'm like, yeah, that's probably going in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But then he went on a run at the end of that fourth quarter where the game was getting tight. The Thunder had a bit of a cushion, but Detroit, I mean, being pesky as they are, they came back and we ended up winning by 6. But Shea hit 2 or 3 shots in a row that were just like, he's the best player on the court, and he is by far the most valuable player right now. Because in the same weekend, you had Jokic losing to the Wizards. So,
yeah, I saw that stat where the Thunder have lost once. They're 25-1 on against the East, and that is one less time than the Nuggets have lost to the Wizards.
Yeah, it's tough. It is tough. But Shea just went and took over that game. Weird game. I mean, moving off of Shea a little bit, you had Cade get ejected. The refereeing, even as a Thunder fan and the team that won, it was not the best officiated game of this season. I mean, you can just tell they kind of like let stuff get out of control. I mean, it's 2 teams that play very physical, and you almost would rather see the refs kind of be a little aggressive with their whistle at the start to kind of set the tone of like, hey, we're here too. But they kind of let things go and things get a little frisky. So much so, Cade gets ejected. You had Isaiah Stewart like get a tech for like pulling J. Will out of the way. But then there's like confusion with like who was shooting free throws, and that's when Cade got a tech and his second tech. And the problem was, and I think it's as good as JB Bickerstaff, the head coach of the Pistons, has been this year. It was a tough look for a head coach to, instead of worrying about your stud young player not getting ejected, he's turning to the crowd and like egging on the "ref you suck" chant.
Right.
And I think all hell would have to freeze over 50 times before Mark Daignault would ever do that.
100%.
And it was a bad look. I mean, we said it. They came back. It was a 6-point game. And that's without Cade for most of the second half because Bickerstaff was worried about that instead of like, you would rather him get attacked than Cade get thrown out.
As the head coach of a young team who plays really hard and is in the middle of a lot of stuff, it feels like, well, after just watching the singular game, you have to be able to step up and take the high road as the head coach because you can't, if you get thrown out of the game as a head coach in the NBA, it doesn't really affect a regular season game. Probably not. Your effect on a regular season game is so slim compared to your star player, the player who leads your team, I'm assuming, in points and maybe an assist.
For sure, assists. He's averaging over 9 a game.
Then yeah, he's almost averaging a double-double, and then you just kind of let him. And granted, Cade didn't do that much. I'm sure he just said something that the ref
The
didn't
Dort
like.
effect was there, but
And so I think he just like got thrown out. But it's just ridiculous. I think at any level of or any level of basketball, it's the coach's responsibility to kind of like protect the players from the ref, right? And he just kind of unleashed Cade and the refs on each other. And I'm not saying they lost the game because of it, but it's probably a big reason why Detroit lost that game.
Well, yeah, I was listening to Thunder After Dark, and Michele Barra, who's a great Thunder follow, he even said, he was like, if you are seen doing that in terms of egging on the crowd to boo the refs, that should be an automatic ejection. Because it's a terrible look for your team. It's a terrible look. You're representing not only your team, but the entire league, and you're enabling that kind of behavior. No ref is perfect. I mean, Bickerstaff literally got fired last year from the Cavs. So, like, what are we doing here?
Has there been any league action on what Bickerstaff did?
Not that I've seen. I'm sure it'll kind of be like something that comes out later in the future, where he'll get fined, and they might even do it behind the scenes, but because it's not like it got recognized during the game,
right?
So it might be a internal thing. But I think all that to say, when you have the coach that we have who doesn't put up with that, he'll go get a tech, but more so to like spark the team more so than anything. And you also have your star player we've been talking about it for 2 years. Shea didn't talk to the refs enough as he was coming up, because he was like, you know what, they're human too. And I fully think that's the right way to go about it. But in today's NBA, you do kind of have to get your word in as well to get any kind of call. Now, NBA Twitter is going to tell you that Shea doesn't need help getting calls. But I mean, there were several times throughout this year, especially in that Detroit game, that Shea kind of, told them like, hey, guys, chill. Like, it's not worth it. Go sit down. And then you have a full allotment of your players to go against it. It's just to be able to stay level-headed throughout all that, not only is massive in terms of team success right now, but it's just going to be amplified tenfold in the playoffs.
Right.
So you have, the double-headed snake of Mark and Shea making sure this team is in line with the team vision, the team goal. It's not something that Thunder fans or any fan that has this luxury, because there are other players like this, you can't take it for granted, because it's right. Special. It's a special kind of player and a special kind of mentality that Shea has and that the whole organization has, that it's put the Thunder where they are. So
I would say it's a very Tim Hortons sort of mentality.
Who's Tim Horton?
Tim Horton is the donut shop in Canada that people love, I think. Maybe I'm wrong, but
okay.
It's just a very nice and pleasant mentality they have.
I bet it's been a while since Shea's had a donut. So, but maybe he grew up on them enough. It just stayed with him.
Maple syrup in his blood.
Yeah. But yeah, it was a great win. Shea, I think even further, I'm going to say it till he wins it, secured the MVP. But rolling into the second night of a back-to-back against the Milwaukee Bucks, it felt like a game that the Thunder might lose, just because of it felt like a game the Thunder would lose, especially after we lost to them in the Cup. You didn't have Dub. Chet set out the second night of a back-to-back. We didn't even mention that Dort hurt his hip, shockingly enough, in Detroit. So he was out. Wiggs did not play in Detroit. He was sick, but he was back for the Bucks game. But the Thunder come away with a 121-105 victory in a game that never really was in doubt.
It felt very comfortable. As you were making that sort of introduction, there was two things I wanted to say. There was 4 people on the team, the youngest team in the NBA with hip injuries. That just feels kind of funny and ironic to me that, the youngest team in the league has a bunch of hip injuries. Also, Aaron Wiggins looked like he was coming back from an illness. He aired 2 threes. He's a little slow, so But my biggest takeaway was the two big lineup is starting to really come into effect. And we were talking about it last podcast. What kind of teams would we want to see this two big lineup against? The Milwaukee Bucks are like prototypical. You want a two big lineup with, going against Giannis, someone to kind of play him physically and then have a roamer around. And while the defense is very difficult on Giannis, the offense, the big to big passing, the decision making was really good from Chet and Hartenstein, I thought.
Yeah, I actually said it wrong. Chet was out the Pistons game. I misspoke. It was out the Pistons game. That's one of, like, you can tell Dub was out, but especially if Chet's out too, that seems to be when Shea goes and scores more and kind of hunts his shot a bit more. So seeing 48 in Detroit, it makes sense. But for sure, the Chet and Hartenstein duo, I mean, Hartenstein had a career high in points against the Bucks in a matchup that I would not have anticipated him getting his career high because of Giannis in there. Brook Lopez is a great shot blocker. It's their chemistry, man. And we've talked about it before. I haven't changed my mind on it. The double big lineup I don't see as like the strength of the team. It's definitely like their off-speed pitch. But when it's this effective in spurts against a team like that.
I mean, the whole game, it felt like it was effective.
Yeah. But more so in spurts compared to like a series. Like you're not going to play that way 7 games. But he just manhandled him. And then Hartenstein, I think the biggest thing with him, especially when they're doubling Shea, his playmaking ability, I mean, we're going to say this until we're blue in the face, but when has the ball in that high post, going back to that Wolves game that they blew a 20-point lead on after Chet was out and he got hurt, if Hartenstein's in that game, that game doesn't even get to single digits because of what he's able to do in the middle of a zone. It's not even really like a true zone. It's more of like they press up top and then retreat back. And but even if the guys aren't hitting shots, is it like he's starting to show an aggression too of specifically dribbling left and getting to his left hand. He doesn't always convert, but it's at least something that we've shown and people have to be wary of. But he looked great. 24 points, 12 rebounds. Shea with a casual 31. I don't know if you saw this, but it was the first time in 49 games that Shea did not make a 3.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, which is, I mean, massive for him. But he was 0 of 5, so he definitely tried to get those shots up. But
yeah, that doesn't surprise me. But even though he's not getting those threes up, it feels like every game he's just like really has a highlight against one defender where he just like crosses him up and does like a quick change of direction, and the defender goes flying off the screen. You can't even see him when you're watching the TV, and he just steps back and kind of like either hits a midi or drives in and gets a layup. He is just absolutely deep frying people.
Yeah, and NBA Twitter will say that it's an offensive foul. He is so strong, it's people bouncing off of him. And that can be biased. I don't care. We've said it before. This is a biased pod. But he's not extending. Like that little chicken wing movement, he's not doing that. It's people literally just bouncing off his shoulder. And so
because he can stop.
Yeah, it's all, core strength and obviously repetition, but that's why he can get to any point on the court that he wants, because even when you're guarding him close, he can create separation, and he's 6'6" with the wingspan that he has. He can rise over the top and shoot over anybody for the most part. But yeah, it was a game that, again, like I said, it was never really in doubt. And it's kind of crazy to say this because after we lost to Denver last Monday night, a week ago tonight, and Dub was hurt, I had the thought, I was like, we might lose 2 or 3 games on this East Coast trip. I thought we'd lose in Boston.
Yeah, 100%. Detroit,
our buddy Breek, we were texting and he was like, for the first time in probably 5 or 6 years, I'm excited to watch the Pistons because they're good.
Yeah.
Because
100%.
They're good. And then Milwaukee with the matchup problems and what we saw in the NBA Cup, we've played them since then, but they sat everyone. So there really wasn't there wasn't a data point there really. So for them to come out and do what they did, they actually, starting tonight, the Nuggets are playing right now, but the Nuggets are sitting Jokic, Murray, and I think MPJ is what I saw. But for sure, Jokic and Murray. If the Nuggets lose tonight, the Thunder clinch the Northwest Division.
Another banner, baby.
Another banner go. It's a banner season.
In the
banner season.
Banner season. The first, hopefully just the first one.
First of hopefully 3. They'd hang one for the division, one for the conference, and one if you win the whole dang thing. But
whole dang thing.
They
big enchilada.
The Thunder won a 9th consecutive road game with the Bucks game, and they also set the record for most road wins in a season with 27 in that game. Obviously, there were 3 straight road games, which really contributed to that. But I mean, just special teams, special players, you know. So yeah, 27th. Yeah, they special season continues. Shea did officially play in his 65th game, so he's officially eligible for the MVP. You don't have to worry about any kind of like missed time. He's not going to. You heard that knock. But yeah, Thunder win. Thunder sweep that. They have 2 games coming back with the 76ers at home Wednesday night and the Hornets at home Friday night. They're not going to lose either of those games. If they do,
let's knock on some more wood.
I don't even care. I don't have to. Those teams are horrible. Both of them are officially in the flag sweepstakes more so than ever. But yeah, it's I mean, the craziest thing is the Thunder they've lost 1 game, as you mentioned, against the Eastern Conference this year. And the most or the least amount of losses in a season against a conference is 3, which is the Warriors back with KD in that era. And the Thunder, I mean, I'd have to go through and list off who they play left from the Eastern Conference, but they could even lose a game and still break the record. So I mean,
it's a pretty easy East Conference schedule.
Well, it's one of those things too.
Bulls are in there.
It makes that we play the Bulls. We play the Bulls March 31st, but we play those 2 teams we mentioned. I know we play the Pacers, but it almost like makes me even think more about how much more impressive in this biased setting that the Thunder's regular season has been compared to Cleveland, because Cleveland's playing these teams way more. I mean, they only play Western Conference teams twice a year. And so I mean, you go through they won 15 in a row before they lost to Orlando on Sunday, or I think it even almost got to 17.
They got to 16. Yeah.
It would have been 17. So that was like their second or third double-digit win streak of the year. And if you look at the rest of their schedule, I mean, they probably win out because of who they're playing.
I think that's their third 15-game win streak.
That sounds right. Right.
Just I mean, they've had an incredible season too. So
yeah, no, they're great, but I think it's just like who Oklahoma City's going against every night. I think it's being a little overlooked, especially because I mean, I went and golfed yesterday before the Bucks game, and me and my buddy Sawyer got paired with a guy named Chris, who was playing his second round of 18 that day. We teed off at 450, and by the end of it, he was telling me about how Shea isn't actually that good. And I just was like, I have a Thunder podcast, man. So like, how do you want to finish this round? It's basically what I said.
Is he a Thunder fan?
No, he's a Mavs fan. He's a Mavs fan.
That makes sense. They're bitter. We'll have to let them. They chanted "Fire Nico" at a
medieval times.
No. They chanted something else. They chanted it at a St. Patrick's Day parade.
Nico just needs to move on.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That was a crazy end of that golf round for sure. he just started firing off takes, and Sawyer and I looked at each other like, "Oh, here we go.
All right,
here we go." And by the end of it, he was like, "Well, Shea's like the MVP," and I was like, "You said he wasn't very good."
Well,
he was like, "Whoa!" And I was like, "Check out Ball Talk, buddy. Get educated."
We need to get those business cards and start sliding to people.
Yeah, but only do it to people we disagree with.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, the last thing I want to touch on, I'm just going to do it quickly. Nothing too crazy because we got to get to the March Madness bracket. Cason Wallace is freaking insane, and I love that he's on this team. What he's doing with Dub out, I mean, he's been exactly what you would want from a guy that, I mean, people wanted us to draft Derek Lively or a big. People were shocked we drafted another guard when we did. But, I mean, he had 20 in Detroit. He looked amazing. In the last 5 games, he's had 5, 12, 14, 20, and 9. And the 5-point game was against Denver when Dub was still healthy.
I mean, not even in the last 5 games, but ever in the month of March, he's shooting 46% from 3, averaging, 30 minutes or 28 minutes a game, 12 points. I mean,
he's your fifth starter in the playoffs.
Really, really good.
Outside of Denver, I think you still go double big there, but I think he's your starter in the playoffs.
Yeah. I mean, he gives such a lift on the defensive end. Those smaller guards that people tend to give other teams problems, like Kyrie or Darius Garland or people like that. Cason Wallace is just like on their hip the whole game. It's so impressive how he moves with guys of that nature who are just so fast. And then on the offensive end, he's giving us a big lift. So I mean, I totally agree. He has to be your 5th starter.
He's to the point where obviously it's not anything that we have to worry about yet. And when he does get to free agency, his first go at it, it will be restricted. So
Right.
The Thunder would have a chance. But after paying Dub, Chet, and Shea, and you already have Caruso locked in, Hartenstein, we'll see what his contract looks like if he gets a second one with the team. Not because I think you need to find a way to retain him, but I mean, just the financial ability. I don't know how that's going to look, but it's like Cason. I don't know how we pay him.
Yeah.
What he's earning. So
yeah. Somehow we need to redraft him and just pay
redraft
him
or convince him that he needs to be on the Aaron Wiggins contract.
Yes.
And we'll find some ways to do like a bunch of sponsorship stuff around Oklahoma City. We'll put him. I mean, we haven't talked about it.
We'll pay for it. Come on, Ball Talk. We'll pay you money.
Yeah, we don't got much, but we'll keep you in Oklahoma City. Maybe he needs to get in the next AT&T commercial that they just came out with. They just released the second
by the
one.
way.
I thought it was better than the first. It's less annoying.
Yes, for sure.
Because they're not singing, but it was filmed at the First National Building in Oklahoma City, which is pretty cool.
Oh, that is really cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So, yeah, to the listeners, go check out the new AT&T commercial. Not an ad, not a plug. It's just a cool Thunder video. Filmed in downtown Oklahoma City. So there's another Oklahoma City plug. But, yeah, Thunder sweep the road trip. Like I said, they got a couple of, hopefully, softball games coming up. Not actually softball, just hopefully games that they can kind of take it easy and bank a few more dubs. But with that, I think we're going to roll on into some March Madness talk. Chris, are you ready for that?
I just want to bring up 2 things. These are totally not related to what we've been talking about. But
Perfect.
Podcast B is out for the season. Paul George is officially ruled out for the season, not from podcasting, but from the NBA, his second job. So I just thought that's of interest to people who listen to podcasts. We do have some more competition on the East Coast with Paul George going back full-time to podcasting. Additionally, the NBA is investigating the Thunder.
Oh, yeah, we do need to talk about
this.
I can't believe that.
The Thunder are being investigated for sitting too many players against the Blazers in a game that we won. I mean, the NBA won't investigate Nico Harrison for trading Luka Doncic, but they'll try to
find because they helped.
Yeah. But they'll find the Thunder some amount of money for sitting Shea and Dort and
Well, it's not for sure that we'll get fined. We're just being investigated. But there are all these teams. I mean, they did fine Utah for sitting Lauri Markkanen $100,000, which to these teams, they're like, if we get Cooper Flagg, it's worth millions. So we don't care.
Yeah.
And even there's a couple other guys in the draft, the 2 Rutgers guys. I mean, even if it's not Flagg, it's worth tanking this year. And for them to investigate the Thunder, like you said, in a game that we won by 18, in a game that Wiggs broke 30, you're trying to take away from Jay Will's triple-double? No. Not on my watch.
I'm not standing for it.
No.
I'm not standing for it.
That's why we're sitting down doing this podcast, because we will not stand for it.
Yeah, we're responsible for bringing this to the public. But
Yeah.
the NBA just doing a terrible investigation of the Thunder violating the league's player participation policy.
Which is only supposed to impact all-stars. Like, that's the rule. That's why Markkanen's the one that got the Jazz fined. Like, in terms of sitting players and things like that. Shea has played all but 2 games this year. He's the MVP of the league. He was the only one that was rest. Everyone else has a bout with some kind of injury. You know, Chet's obviously a return to performance policy, as Mark calls it, return to performance instead of return to play. And then Dub, he had his wrist injury before the hip thing that he had been nursing. I mean, Dort feels like he's been nicked up all year. Kaysen's been hurt. Hartenstein had his he wears a mask for Pete's sakes. I mean, like, the whole team's like nicked up, and we don't take games off. No. There's a freaking 13-game lead between us and second place in the West. Like, let's go look at Philadelphia. Dallas doesn't even, they might have to forfeit games.
Yeah.
Because they don't have enough players.
Yeah. Yeah, you're totally right.
A lot of bad luck, but like, why? Like, I mean, Mark brought up, he was like, I'm not going to talk about it, but it is stupid that we pick and choose when we want to really like look into this stuff.
Right.
Like, it's not universal.
Yeah,
so,
I wonder if the Blazers reported it because they're like, we lost some revenue because Shea's not playing.
Yeah, or we wanted to win that game. Can we find a way to get them to forfeit? Because they're kind of chasing a 10th seed. So
they can't forfeit that game.
No, they're not going to forfeit the game.
There's no way. They lost the game by 18 points.
No, and even if the Thunder get fined, who cares? Unless it means we can't pay Kaysen.
Yeah,
that's the only thing.
It's the right amount of money where we can't keep the team together.
Yeah,
that'd be crazy.
I forgot one other thing before we move on. We had a comment on the last pod. It was from our Uncle Matt and your dad were asking about what box score plus minus means, and so they wanted us to explain that. So box score plus minus is relatively straightforward. It's basically what the score does when you're on the court. So like if you come into the game and you score, and then the team gets up 10 points, and then you come out and it shrinks to a 2-point lead, but then you come back in and it goes to a 12-point lead, then you're a plus 20. But if you come on the floor and your team loses by 5 and you come off, you were currently at a -5. It's basically just a running count of how the team does in a given game.
Your overall differential when on the court.
Yeah, that's the smarter way to say it. But it's kind of it's fun to use whenever it's hyping up your argument, and it's also like kind of irrelevant because there are times where players are on the court just to be on the court, or they're on one bad stretch or one great stretch. And I mean, I think Isaiah Joe's one of the guys that leads our team in plus minus by like a long shot.
I think it's more of a longevity statistic than a game-to-game statistic. I think if a guy
you want to show consistency,
right? Mm-hmm. So if we say someone's had like a really consistent, plus 11 in the plus minus over the whole season, they've had a really, really good season, because that's very hard to do. What are like the average plus minus been? I can't imagine them being more than like I know like the best plus minus overall for a team is like 11.5. So it's like players are going to be somewhere below that at like, a good player would have like a +3 or +5 -1/2 plus minus, or is that totally wrong?
I mean, obviously I think it's case by case and each year is different. I mean, just for when looking at leaders in plus minus, Shea is number 1 in the NBA at plus 867. So the Thunder are outscoring teams by 867 points when he's on the. This is in total, not average.
Okay, sorry, I was talking about average.
I tried to find average, and this is the thing that popped up. But number 2 is Jokic at 659. So Shea's almost 200 points better than Jokic in terms of plus minus. But yeah, there's your little basketball tidbit for my 2 uncles and your uncle and father. So yeah, I think it's March Madness time, Chris. How you feeling?
Mad. I'm mad for basketball.
I'm pissed.
I'm pissed for basketball right now. I'm totally pissed.
Love it. How do you want to do this? You just want to do?
Let's do like the South region. Who you have coming out of the South region? We're doing Elite Eight, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and here's the deal. I might change this. I'm going to try to lock this in, but there's a good chance I change this about 5 times before Thursday. But what I got right now.
Yeah. Who you got?
I got a rivalry game in the Elite Eight. I got Michigan State.
Whoa. Okay.
I think Auburn's playing bad right now.
Okay.
I think they've lost like 3 or 4 or something like that. And honestly, I might be wrong. I just know they lost in the SEC championship. Michigan's playing well. Your Oklahoma Sooners beat the Wolverines earlier this year. Oklahoma Sooners got killed by Auburn. So I don't know if that's actually a good take.
You just talked yourself
I'm talking myself out of it. But
no.
It feels like something that would happen in March Madness, that there'd be some rivalry game to get to the Final Four.
It would bring a lot of attention, specifically from the state of Michigan. But
it's a storybook situation.
And they love, when the credits roll at the end of March Madness, they love playing those storybook moments, and that would be one for sure.
Yeah. What is your South region?
I have Auburn. I think just like their body of work from the whole season, and maybe they get a little healthier, heal up some of those nicks and bruises, and they can. I have them beating Michigan to play Iowa State. A little Big 12 SEC action going on.
Interesting. Iowa State's one of their guards is out for March Madness. Just a little tidbit there for you. So.
Well, that's information Chris didn't know.
I'm gonna lose me some money doing this podcast.
Yeah, you should have let me. You should let me pick Iowa State. Damn,
I know.
Okay,
but it's still a great pick.
I think probably. But I just like. And here's something about my brackets. I hate going chalk. I hate doing 1-2, 1-2, 1-2 in the Elite Eight. It just never feels good.
That's why I got Michigan there.
Have you got number 1. Do you always like if you ever get to like 1 and 2s? Are you ever just like, all right, I gotta
go back.
I gotta find somebody who can beat.
When we move on to another region, that exact same thing happens. So.
Okay. Oh, then we'll do the East region next.
I didn't say it. I have Michigan State beating Michigan to get to the Final Four. So
I would say Auburn would beat Iowa State without their guard.
Okay, smart. Okay, East region, go.
I would say I have Duke, the 1 seed coming out.
Chalk.
And then I have them playing again the 3 seed, Wisconsin.
Okay. So what's your reasoning?
I don't really have a reasoning. I think Wisconsin and Duke, they played in the 2015 national championship. I'd love to see that rematch. That would be another storybook moment. I think Cooper Flagg, if he plays, I'm not sure if he's playing. I think he'll put on the show.
I think he's back.
I think he'll put on the show, and they're good without him anyways. So I think he'll put on the show. They played
great without him in the ACC tournament
because it's his 1 year. And I have Duke going to the Final Four.
Okay, well, we're the same there. I have Duke getting out of the East region mainly because of Cooper Flagg. I have them beating St. Mary's.
Yeah, I love that. That's your non-chalk sort of throw in there.
I had Bama in there before, and then on a Saturday for the St. Patty's Day party, after watching Bama get absolutely pulverized by Florida, I was like, you know what? Second round upset.
Who do you have? You St. Mary's beating them to go to beat, and then who does St. Mary's beat? Do they beat Wisconsin?
They beat the Badgers. They beat the Badgers. And I'm already looking at maybe moving VCU into there. We'll see. But I got Duke.
Whoa. I got
Duke out of that.
I think Liberty's going to beat Oregon. I
think Oregon's like a sleeper pick. They tend to do well, at least through the first couple games of the NCAA tournament. So
you think Oregon then beats Arizona, and then it's Oregon Duke?
Dude, I got Akron beating Arizona. What are you talking about?
You have Akron. Oregon beating Akron to go play Duke.
I think Arizona's streaky. That's my thought. But yeah, enough talk about the East region. We got to keep it going. Keep this under time. Let's do the West next. How's that?
Okay, this one is my least chalk region. But for some reason, I
Interesting.
really love the 3 seed. So again, I have the 3 seed Texas Tech.
Coming out of the West.
No. I have been playing Maryland in the Elite Eight 3-4 matchup. Maryland beating Florida to make it to the Elite Eight.
Wow.
And then I'll have Maryland moving on. Shout out Scott Van Pelt, Maryland graduate, grandmother from Miami, Oklahoma.
There's your connection. My West region, I have your Oklahoma Sooners
All right. I'm done. No way.
losing in the first round to the Connecticut Huskies.
Okay.
No, I have Florida coming. I think Florida is playing like the best team in the country right now. I got Florida beating the Texas Tech Red Raiders.
Okay. All right.
Because I think Tech's playing well too. I like their team. So
who's the coach? It's not Chris Beard, is it? No, he got fired from Texas.
Ole Miss. Beard's at Ole
is?
Miss.
He got fired
at
from Texas and then went to Ole Miss.
Yes. So he's a great dude. Texas Tech's head coach is Grant McCaslin, who has done a great job. But lastly, the Midwest region. As for those of you that know me, I have Kansas losing in the second round. I know that's people are dying to hear where I got the Jayhawks going. You could talk me into losing first round, but
no, I think they lose to Texas Tech. I think it's a Big 12 matchup.
I don't hate that.
How have they fared against Texas Tech this year?
They lost both games.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a pretty.
Nobody beats the Jayhawks 3 times.
Good pick by Chris then.
Quickly, Midwest. Who you got?
Houston and the Fighting Illini. So I got the 6th seed coming out, and then I think I want Calvin Sampson to leave Houston and come to OU. So I think he loses, and then they run him
realizes he can't do it in Houston
because he can't make it to the Final Four again.
This might be the bracket that I change the most between now and Thursday, because my Sweet 16 is 1-5-3-2.
And you know that's not going to happen.
No, but there's always one. There's always one bracket that tends to be like relatively the top. Yeah, there's usually one. So I got Houston advanced to the Final Four. I think, and this is my take. Obviously, everyone else can take this and win money because it's foolproof. I think this is going to be a crazy tournament. I think there are 2 or 3 teams that are far and away the best teams, and they will advance to I think there's 3 number 1 seeds in the Final Four.
You do? You think it's Duke, Houston, and Florida? So you have Houston. Who do you have Houston playing?
Duke. Houston.
No.
Duke.
Sorry. In
Florida plays Michigan State.
No. Sorry. In the Elite Eight.
Oh, Kentucky. The Fighting Otega Oways.
Oh,
I got Kentucky. Gosh. I didn't love it. I didn't love that one. I might switch it right now to Troy beating Kentucky round 1. You
made all the hairs stand up on the back of my neck by going so like 1, 2, 3, 4.
No. So I think here's what we're gonna do. There's my Final Four. Who's your Final Four?
Auburn, Maryland, Duke, the Fighting Illini.
I love it. You're gonna have to come back later this week to figure out who we pick to win the national championship and if we change anything in our bracket.
Which we will, because Ben's bracket is disgusting.
It's already busted.
Yes. Those are the best tweets when somebody, the day the bracket comes out, someone says, my bracket's already busted.
Yeah. They like released the first game and they're like,
busted.
Darn. But yeah. So there's your March Madness talk. Shout out to the Sooners for making it. The women's team got the 3 seed. They're hosting a regional or a
very
first
exciting
round or whatever.
Get on the Norman, support the ladies.
And then also your OU baseball team took their first SEC series in South Carolina in dramatic fashion, winning on it. They were down 2 runs going into the 9th, came back and tied it, and then Jason Walk, who's been an emerging guy for them, hit a home run in the 10th to win that game. To win their first SEC series, and OU softball is still undefeated. So not much new there, but it's a good time for OU sports right now, which is not something we've been saying a lot lately.
It's not fall.
Correct. Spring practice. Everything looks greater in spring.
That's right.
But cool. Well, appreciate everybody for listening.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
Take all this advice. Go win your bracket challenge, unless you're in our pools, and come back later this week to figure out where Chris and I have changed it, because that's definitely happening.
Yeah,
Cool.
definitely happening.
Yep. Appreciate everybody. We'll talk to you next time. See ya.
See ya.
All night long. Party, party, we like to party, party, party all night long. Party, party, we like to party, 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 never go home. Party, party, we like to party, party.